hope I'm able to just share some stories and some tools that are good enough to criticize, right? That your job is to criticize. I have to tell you, I'm incredibly honored to be here and share these things with you. And Patrick has helped me orient but I don't think we've figured it out yet. I think we're still really, really early with technology. And I think we're going to look back 20 years from now at what we're doing today and wonder why we're doing some things. So I'm not so worried that everybody has to do the same thing. I think we're still in this phenomenal age of experimentation. But what I want to do, I want to start off with some very practical skills and watching students. One of the nominal title of this talk is Making Thinking Visible, and I have learned a lot by watching my students use technology. I think more than I've taught myself. So I'm just going to tell you, I'm just a big believer in watching students use technology. See things, and some of them are disturbing, some of them are not good. In fact, maybe I'll start off with some things that are not good. One of the things I've learned is that are there any students in the room? I'm just curious. Oh, bunches. You're all doctoral students, though, it looks like. Aren't you? Yeah, you're all doctoral students. So one of the things I've learned is that very often when students get an assignment, and I have 2 college-age kids at home, one day they'll move out, but I don't know when that'll ever be. They very often just Google the assignment as the search. They take the assignment word for word that a professor gives, and that's their search. So I want to show you some things that happen, stories I've picked up when that happens. In fact, are any of you on the internet right now? We could make this interactive. You don't need to just listen to me. You can do anything you want, watch videos, anything. But let me just give you an assignment, right? Give you an assignment. The assignment is to write a paper on the Iranian hostage crisis. Okay? Write a paper on the Iranian hostage crisis. And it's a typical history assignment. What happened next, and finally what happened? And what's your analysis? Standard history assignment. I have to tell you, I used to teach a doctoral class on leadership and technology and change, and a couple of my doctoral students were West Point professors, lieutenant colonels in the U.S. Army, one of them teaching history at West Point. So this was very related to an assignment at West Point. West Point gave every student a computer in 1985. So in terms of universities, they've been doing this longer than just about anybody else. There are some exceptions, but a lot of this started West Point. And one of the things I want to frame while you're thinking about the assignment is the real revolution is not technology, it's information and relationships. It's what information can you get, what can you do with it, and with whom do you do it? So the boxes, the technology, this is just the digital plumbing. What I'm really interested in is the information, what you do with it, how you get it, what you do with it when you're done with it, and how you collaborate around the world doing that, right? So, Iranian hostage crisis, let me show you what happened. As I said earlier, a lot of students will just type their assignment, word for word. Now, what's interesting to me, you'll have to forgive me, I don't know you, but a lot of places where I've been, a lot of assignments that are given to students were actually originally written before the internet was invented. So what's happening in the United States, I believe, you'll have to tell me otherwise, is that we're giving old assignments written in the age of paper, when paper was the dominant technology, even though we have this new media today. So I'll just show you what happened on this. So as I said, I don't know what search you did, but the student in this case types in Iranian hostage crisis. And word for word, that's the assignment. And if they get Wikipedia, they didn't know why, by the way. I like to ask that question, why does Wikipedia show up? And what's interesting about students using the internet for homework for their professors, you're not going to believe this, but a lot of students only look at the top screen of results. That's what the research shows. They're only looking at the top screen. Do any of you believe what I just said? Somebody? Ferris Bueller? Right. And you know, you get 500,000 results. So one of the things you immediately have to teach people is what's missing. We have to teach pattern recognition, understanding patterns of information. So I'll ask you, did you do the search on your own device by chance? I don't know whether you typed in what I typed in, but so there are no sources from Iran. I'll just tell you. The Google algorithm is geographically biased, and if you're sitting in Denton and you do a search on the Iranian hostage crisis, I don't even have to go to any of your tables and watch if you did a search like that. You don't have any sources from Iran. Now, before the internet, we had no sources from Iran anyway, so you wouldn't worry about it. But one of the most amazing things about the web, when you're thinking about designing an assignment, is we have global perspective. I think we should put in global perspective whenever we can into the design of an assignment. So I'll just ask you, would you please find Iranian sources? What's missing are the Iranian sources. How do you do that search? Well, what a lot of students do is they type in Iranian sources. They just type in Iranian sources. And they get the Jimmy Carter Library. And they get UMBC, and they get all these universities. They get the Truman Library and Wikipedia, and well, it turns out that between those American universities and the Jimmy Carter Library, there's no sources from Iran, even though I typed in Iranian sources. So what I really have to do is completely rethink this design, type in site:/ac.ir. That search, the site command in Google is a limiter. AC.ir is academic. See, in the United States, all universities are EDU extension. You know that. Everybody in the room knows that. In a lot of the rest of the world, they do not use EDU. They use AC for academic and always the two-letter country code. So if I wanted to search for Iranian universities, I would type in site:/ac.ir. I look that up. I can look up all the country codes. It's just a reference source. Site command? How many of you have used the site command in a search? Not too many. All right. Well, I'll show you the cheat sheet where all the commands. Google has 16 commands called operators. And these 16 operators give you unbelievable precision if you're designing an assignment for students or doing research. Kind of important to know. So what's the rest of the search, right? Site:/ac.ir. That will ensure that all of my content is from Iranian universities, nothing from the United States. And then unfortunately, most students will type in Iranian hostage crisis right after that. And I'm glad you laughed. I'll have to ask them, do you think the Iranians called it the Iranian hostage crisis? And so you want to find out, what did they call it? In fact, can you do that now? What did the Iranians call the Iranian hostage crisis? Go ahead, do it. You can call a friend. You can do anything you want. Anything. Just tell me, what did the Iranians, anybody in the room, just shout it out. What did the Iranians call the Iranian hostage crisis? Say it again? No? You're guessing. No, wait, stop guessing. This is what kids do. They guess. Stop guessing. No, you have to be precise. We're looking for precision. Yes? Did they call it that? Because I have a different reference than that. But they may have. That one I did not find. I found Conquest of the American Spy Den. Conquest of the American Spy Den. Here, I'll show you. So I have 95 results of Iranian university content on Conquest of the American Spy Den. Now, that search does not have any overlap with Iranian hostage crisis. If you're at West Point, which I know you're not, right? So I know you're not preparing Army officers. I got that. Army officers who are going to be deployed around the world, make important decisions, obviously have to get the right information at the right time, if you're an Army officer. But even if you're not an Army officer, you're going to be a nurse, you're going to be a doctor, you're going to be an engineer, anything. I think it's important for everybody to get the right information at the right time, regardless of what you do in life. And I'm worried that when a student gets an assignment from a professor, that the capacity for the student to do their best research is not built into the assignment. For example, this assignment, Iranian hostage crisis, the professor did not require 2 sources from Iran. The professor did not explain the site command. There was no discussion about, maybe the Iranians called it something different. Maybe we should teach you to design a query so that you get other points of view. So I'm worried, and I know this is without evidence here, but I'm very confident that a lot of students you're receiving as freshmen don't know how to use Google. They think they know. I'm just going to tell you, the schools don't teach this. It's not on the state test in Texas. It's not on the test. So we don't teach things that aren't on the test. But it turns out you need to know this. Can I show you another one? I'll just give you one more. Well, any questions so far? And I should show you the cheat sheet. For those of you who don't know where I got this, Google, and the word operator, and the word guide. Google operator guide. And you will see the Google search operators, Google guide, and all of the power of these words to give you precision over your search. Click on any word like the word site, and it will show you how that function works. So a lot of this, I think, is invisible to a lot of students. Watch your students. See if they understand the algorithm of Google and the command structure and how to get precision when they're doing work for you. You have to watch them and see what they can do. Okay, I'll give you an example. Let's say you teach Shakespeare. And I want to do a search for all PowerPoints from British universities on Shakespeare, right? Same thing. So I would type in site : British universities are ac.uk. always the AC, two-letter country code. Not in every country, but in Britain, I had to look that up. So site:/ac.uk. Then file type, PPT. File type is another command. This should be called the professor's command because it allows you to focus on how files are stored. And then Romeo and Juliet. So I have 55 PowerPoints from professors in Britain on Romeo and Juliet with that search. Then if I take out the ac.uk, I type in edu, I have 200 plus from American universities. And then if I want Australian, they use edu with the AU. Australia, looked it up, and I got 10. I go to Ireland, all over the world. In pretty quick order, I can get content from professors all over the world in almost any subject, very fast. Now here's the provocative concept. Because I have access to so much material around the world of other professors, do I come in to class with my presentation, transfer my knowledge, or do I design a challenge where my students look at 5 presentations from different countries, different cultural perspectives, Romeo and Juliet, and I ask them to remix them so I can easily, because of the nature of PowerPoint, the technology, I can ask them to build a new slide deck from 5 other professors on one focus of Romeo and Juliet, like irony or pathos or logos or ethos. So the kids are building something, remixing the work of different cultural perspective. You couldn't do that assignment before the internet. That's another example where you can change the design of the work because of the power of the new media. What I've learned is that this is a very difficult kind of assignment to switch to because so many professors are really, really, really good at their subject that the natural behavior is to share your knowledge, that class is your class. It's about your knowledge, your expertise, your scholarship being shared. Obviously, enormous value, obviously. But teaching your students to see different cultural interpretations of Romeo and Juliet might have its own value, that it's not you, that it's purposely not you, that you're bringing in the work of lots of others. It's fascinating, by the way, to ask students which one they prefer. They have a different opinion sometimes than professors. And surprisingly, or maybe not surprisingly to you, we've actually done some little experiments. Very often, more than half the group just wants their professor to tell them. They just want their professor. And I'll say, well, why? Why do you want your professor? And the students almost always say, that's too much work. Why should I look at 5? That's my professor's job, is to do all the research to put together a presentation in class. That's not my job. That's my professor's job. It's too much work. Just tell me the answer. Don't make me find different perspective and try to figure it out. It's too hard. So I worry if that's true. I would worry that if we've created a culture where students are used to being given answers and they're not doing the harder, heavy lifting, that would concern me if that's correct. I don't know. Any thoughts on ripping off other professors? Love it. You love it. You love it. Just to attribute correctly, right? We all know that. So, but it's absolutely ethical, by the way. Ethical, it's fine. You're not going to get hauled away to jail as long as you give proper attribution. I do love it. I actually love it too. I actually think students should be working harder in classes. They should be doing the heavy lifting. It's an amazing time to do that. Okay. Another kind of design of assignment, sometimes we find, by the way, are you okay with this? Am I boring you? You look absolutely dead quiet. Are you thinking or am I boring you? Thinking? It's the same look in Texas. It's thinking and boredom. Okay. So sometimes weird things happen, right? If I type in ear mouse on the web, weird things, BBC, I'm fascinated by weird things, especially in science, right? We got all these weird things happening in science. And so, in the age of the web, it turns out that there are, believe it or not, different versions of the truth. We have some really weird stuff, and students find it. They find it. So I want you to read the first sentence, if you don't mind. Scientists who grew a human ear. How did the ear get in the back of the mouse, according to that sentence? What's the action verb, right? You got that? Action verb. And then I'm going to do another quick search. Ear mouse. And come up to Wikipedia, and I'm going to say mouse, by the way. The mouse lives near me in Boston. This is a real mouse. This is a real mouse. This is not Photoshop. And I'd like you to read the opening paragraph, actually the second sentence. I don't know if you can read this because I can't zoom in anymore. Maybe a little bit more. And what is the action verb? How did the ear get on the back of the mouse, according to the Wikipedia article? Well, if you're close enough and you could read the two sentences, they're not the same. The BBC article says that ear grew out of the back of the mouse, and the Wikipedia article says it was implanted. That's different. Grew, implanted. By the way, we can do this all day long. There is stuff all over the internet that doesn't agree. I think it's called the election also. So you have, what you have is, for those of you that did not grow up with the internet like me, and you grew up with 3 channels of television, and you didn't have all this access to information, it turns out that we never really did teach people to question information. We basically told them everything is true that we're going to teach you. The whole course is true. But I'm worried that because of the lack of sophistication of search technique and the lack of teaching people how to question, we have a lot of people in this country, and I know it's become a cliche, but it's real. They see it on the internet and they believe it to be true. I know that's a cliche, but it's real. Witness the American election. I mean, it is real. It's dangerous. So what I'm hoping is that one of you, if you haven't already done this, when you give an assignment, you will purposely align content that does not agree. You will purposely show bogus material, but without telling your students. You will make them come face to face, getting caught in the subject you teach, that they got manipulated into believing something was true. That's a painful moment, but they need to experience somebody who's a scholar with them. So please do not only give assignments where everything in the assignment is true. Mess up their heads on purpose. Mess with their heads because somebody needs to, and then explain how they could have thought about this, right? Now, by the way, in the age of the web, we've gone through a couple of concepts. So that Iranian example, that was cultural perspective. This is all about primary source, right? You know, before the internet, I could not see the original material on this. So to solve the problem, if you were to give, you know, something like this, then your challenge to your students is to say to them, find the primary source. I could say that to you now. Find the primary source about this mouse. The original work, right? So chances are it was done at a university. If you scan these articles, you will see a couple of universities mentioned: University of Massachusetts Medical School, MIT is mentioned, Harvard's mentioned. So if I go back to Google for a moment, and I want to validate site:/mit.edu. That's the only way to search for MIT content. I have to have the site command, the domain name. I can't just say MIT. Then I put in the facts. I know it's an ear, excuse me, I know it's mouse, and I know the name of the doctor, Vacanti. So I run the search, and there's a bunch of big words here, but implantable. The BBC article is incorrect and Wikipedia is correct. I can get the primary source, I can back it up. See, I think we have to require students to go get primary sources, especially in fields like science, medicine. We have to. We never could before, but now we can. And so designing assignments that require that and challenge, I think, are incredibly important. Okay. Sometimes students are not prepared to have a repertoire of search tools. So if I were to ask you to research 9/11, what happened in New York City that day? What happened with the World Trade Center, right? I ask you to do that. Do that, please do that. What happened with 9/11? It's just simple. I'm not trying to trick you in any way. I just want to know what you do. What are you going to do? Right? A lot of material on that, 9/11. Take a quick look. I'll show you what I do while you're doing what you're doing. Obviously, there's no right answer to this, so it doesn't matter. But if I go to archive.org, I'm not going to go to Google. I'm going to go to the Wayback Machine. And in the Wayback Machine, I'm going to type in CNN address. That's the only thing you type into the Wayback Machine. How many of you have used the Wayback Machine in class? You've demonstrated one? One? All right, well, we got some work to do. So I do a search on the Wayback Machine, and it gives me this. For those of you who've never seen it, it gives me this year by year. I'm going to click on 2001. That changes the calendar below, 2001. And I'll click on September 11th, right there, September 11th, 2001. And I am looking at CNN as that event is taking place. And I can get multiple versions of that during the day. Now, if you don't know you can do this, and you go to Google and you typed in 9/11, and you didn't know that you could get things as they were happening, that's different content than what you'll see in Google. So I'm worried that there's so much information on the internet, there's so much there, but most students are only looking at the top screen. We're not building capacity. I hope I'm wrong on this. I want to be wrong on this. I'm worried that we're not building capacity when we design assignments, that students will be required to use the full capacity of the internet. I'm worried. I want to be wrong. If I'm not wrong, then what will happen is a really scary video. If you want to, how many of you, there's this amazing TED Talk on how the internet works. It's by a guy named Eli Pariser, gave this amazing TED Talk. I'm not going to show this talk now, but you may want to watch it on your own. How many of you have seen this? Well, a dozen of you have. This is a fascinating talk. This scares me as much as any TED Talk I have ever seen. Because, especially given that what's happening with the election, I just want to show you a small part of this. See if I can zip out.
Mark Zuckerberg, a journalist was asking him a question about the news
feed. It's not letting me zip out. There we go. I can zip out now.
Google's doing it too. If I search for something and you search for something, even right now, at the very same time, we may get very different search results. Even if you're logged out, one engineer told me, there are 57 signals that Google looks at. Everything from what kind of computer you're on, to what kind of browser you're using, to where you're located, that it uses to personally tailor. Think about it for a second. There is no standard Google anymore. And you know, the funny thing about this is that
let me jump ahead a little bit more. So he asked a friend.
Daniel didn't get anything about the protests in Egypt at all in his first page of Google.
All right, so two guys run the same search. One guy gets all political news, one guy gets all travel news. Same search. In the beginning, everybody got the same results in Google. When Google first came out, you would not see this. But over time, the algorithm changed so that now we're getting different results depending on who we are. You understand this is called personalized search. So if you have your own computer and you have a Google account, Google is tracking the history of your search. That means that in the future, when you make a search like Egypt, they want to sell you stuff. So Google figured out that if they give this guy all political news, that comes with political ads. So he gets more clicks. Google makes more money. So what's happening is the more you use Google, the smaller your worldview becomes. It's based on your past history. You don't see what the other person sees. You only see what you see. Libraries don't work like this. World of Paper does not work like this. The library does not reorganize itself when you walk in and only give you what it thinks you should want. The library is the library. But Google is not Google. Google actually reorganizes the results based on who you are. This could be one of the most dangerous things that is happening to society, because if you are a Republican and you type in Republican issues, you will only get Republican points of view. If you're a Democrat, likewise, you will only get Democratic points of view. And both of you will think you're right and the other person's wrong. I think we do call that Washington, D.C. You understand that the elections have become more extreme? Is there anybody in this room who does not believe this? That our elections have become more and more extreme? Why? What has happened to create that? Well, one explanation is that people don't understand how they're being manipulated when they're doing searches. If that's true, if Eli Pariser is correct in analyzing, that means the role of a university is more important than ever in teaching people that there are different points of view and how to get them. Otherwise, I am really concerned that everybody is going to think they're right and no more compromise. It's a dangerous time. I think it's a really dangerous time. All right, I'm done with Google. I'm done with all that. I want to show you a couple of my heroes. This is a website, CS50. You can just type in CS50. You come right to this website. This website is the single most popular course at Harvard University. It's Introduction to Computer Science. The professor is David Malan. 850 students take this course whenever it's offered. I know David very well. I have a podcast with him on my website, and my son took this course last year. He is now a computer science major. He went from basket weaving to computer science. And changed my son's life. He changes, this guy is transformational. David Malan is a transforming character. In fact, so many students at Yale who have friends at Harvard wanted David Malan that they petitioned the university to hire David Malan, and he refused to go. But what David said in the conversations, he told me, is he said, look, we got enough technology. Just beam me into Yale. Just beam me in. I'll be at Harvard. I don't need to be at Yale. We can organize this whole thing. And Yale said, we don't do that. But they capitulated. He's beamed in. I want to show you a little video of how many students at Yale take this course with the professor at Harvard. See if I can run this. This is
Hi, David. Hi, everyone at Harvard.
Yale.
We are so excited to be bringing CS50 to Yale this semester. My name is Brian Scasalati, but everyone just calls me Skaz. And I'm here today to introduce to you the CS50 staff.
that's just the staff. That's not the class. It's important.
And more importantly, I'm here to introduce as well all of the students at Yale who, as of this morning, have made this the most popular course at Yale, the CS50 students.
So that's the class. No one predicted this at Yale, that it would be far and away, by a couple hundred kids, the most popular course at Yale, the most popular course at Harvard. Now, you could think it's the content, but it's not. It's what he does. And I'm going to break down his website, and a lot of it is counterintuitive. I'm just going to tell you now, his secret sauce, according to my son, who is so on fire. In fact, I was walking with Patrick last night. You have a beautiful town square, by the way. I thought I was in, like, way back with the future. It was like, is that the clock tower? I mean, that was really nice, by the way, Patrick. And so my son called, right? My son called, and I acted really concerned. You know, it was 10 o'clock and 9 o'clock, somewhere around there. But it was 10 o'clock in Boston. And Patrick said, "Are you okay? Is your son okay?" I said, no, he wants to get a master's degree at MIT. It's going to cause a lot of trouble. That's a good problem to have, right? Patrick pointed out to me I should relax and think that's a good thing that my son wants to go to MIT. This is a kid who wouldn't even go to class. And now he's planning a future out into his doctorate degree because of David Malan. So I'm going to tell you what he did. I asked Annie, I said, what's the one thing that David Malan did for you that lit you on fire? Oh, I got to tell you, the expected workload at Harvard outside of class for every class hour is 2 to 3 hours. This is what you're supposed to spend as a student researching, writing. All the research on CS50 is 13 to 25 hours per hour. Per hour. My son easily spent 50, 60 hours a week just on this one class. So how do you get to be the most popular course at Harvard and Yale and the most difficult in terms of the amount of work, right? So it's not that it's easy, it's really hard. It's 5 computer languages all at once. It's a lot of work, plus the creative application of them. First thing my son says is David Malin requires that all students self-assess. You do not hand work in unless you reflect on it and assess it yourself. And you have to assess it in 3 areas. You have to have the work effort. What was your timeline of work on the job? You have to describe the job itself. What did you create? The elegance of the code. And all the students are in small groups, and you have to show 2 peers, and they have to share out assessment. Then you hand it in to the professor. So there's this reflection. And I asked my son, I said, why did that change you? He said, Dad, any other professor I've ever had didn't do that. I just thought it was the professor's job to assess my work, not mine. But when I have to assess my work, then I'm the one responsible for the quality of my work. I have to work harder. I know that sounds too simplistic, but self-assessment, if you Google that, I can show you. Studies have been done of all the things you can do in a classroom. So let's see, I want to pull this out just to show you I'm not randomly making this up. There's a researcher at the University of Melbourne called John Hattie who did a meta-analysis of what works with about 800 research studies. There's roughly 138 things you can do in your classroom to try to improve learning. 138 things. At the top of the 138 things, if you research John Hattie, what works is students who self-report. That gives you the biggest impact than any other single behavior you can work on, is shifting responsibility to your students for all the assessment. Crazy, huh? Self-assessment. On my website, I'll just tell you, I have November Learning is my website, novemberlearning.com. Oh, it looks like it blew up today. There it is. I have this podcast with David Malin on my website. You can listen to me interviewing David Malin. It's a fascinating conversation for me. I asked him, how do you know you're a good professor? What evidence do you have? That I could ask you, what evidence can you bring to show that you're a good professor, right? It's a hard question. So I asked David. He laughed. He said, the only evidence I have is student work demonstrates that they had to learn things that I did not teach during class. I've never had an educator give me that answer. I asked that question all over the world. He actually believes that he should not teach students everything they need to complete his assignments. That he should force them to, on their own, research and learn, because the answers are on the internet. So he purposely, I mean, who does this? He purposely leaves things out and gives assignments, knowing he did not prepare you. That's crazy. My son loved it. It also made him a lifelong learner. This is why he now thinks he can do anything. He thinks he doesn't even need. Now, I know you want to be needed. I understand that you want to feel, I want to feel needed. I'm glad you've come today. But in the long run, we have to teach people to be without us. And David Malin, big believer in that. Leave things out. I'm just fascinated by that answer. Anyway, you can listen to the interview. I also asked him, what mistake did you make? What's the biggest mistake you made, especially about your website? I'll show you his website in a second. He's a PhD computer science guy, so he knows a lot about the internet and building things, and there's no limit to what he can do with a professor's website. So he laughed again. He said, yeah, I made 2 mistakes. The first mistake is my website was all about my stuff. Everything on it was my assignments, my resources, my stuff. And then I realized, like I showed you Teacher B with Shakespeare, he said, there's so much stuff around the world encoding what I teach, tutorials and videos other people did, that now my website is filled with other people's stuff. And it's much better because my students see how different professors would approach it. So that was a big mistake I made, dominantly my stuff to changing it to the world's stuff. The other mistake he said he made, it took him 5 or 6 years to figure out the problems to give students. That was the most difficult part of the success of his course, was the problems. I'm going to show you another professor on that as well. Anyway, CS50, let me go back and try to go over some details of, and I asked my son, why did you take CS50? I mean, you knew it was this hard. You knew. Every kid at Harvard knows. And I said, why did you do that? You knew 40, 50, 60 hours just for that course. And he said, Dad, I went to the YouTube channel for CS50, CS50 Fair in YouTube. Well, the CS50 Fair YouTube channel shows students over the years and years of their final projects, talking about their final projects. No other course he has ever had shows student work at the end of the course. He doesn't even know what it looks like, but not David Malin, he shows it all. So my son had access to this amazing library of student work. That's what motivated him. That's what kept him going, even in the toughest times, was he realized that if he kept going, he could be like those kids. He knew what those kids were capable of doing at the end. That kept him going. No other professor has ever shown my son the results of a course, except David Malin. Now they have the Yale version up. They just finished the Yale semester. So the website itself, just to show you, CS50, see if you have any of these elements. My son took me through it. I said, show me. He said, oh, well, lectures, Dad. All the lectures are there. This is not a big deal, but to my son it was. He said, week 5, he said, I can go to any day, Wednesday. I can see the video of the entire lecture. I can see the transcript. So he clicks on transcript. It's every word searchable. So it's all of his notes, every tutorial, every word spoken, every quiz, every assignment, the syllabus, obviously. I've just never seen so much stuff on a professor's website. So I said, Danny, why do you go to class? Why don't you just sit home and watch the video? You have all the professor's notes. You don't have to take notes. You have his notes of his notes. You have every tutorial you'll ever want on every language you're taking. Why do you go to class? And he says, Dad, 850 kids go to class. We all go to class. He said, the reason I go to class is because my job, given all that stuff is on the professor's website, my job is just to ask questions. All I do is I listen to David Mallon talk about the design of some problem. I know all the resources are there. I know I do not have to take notes. My job is to ask questions. And when I finish class, I take my questions and I go to the website and I see how many I can answer on my own. And then I have my discussion group and we all bring our questions, all of us bring our questions, and we work together. So it's all about asking questions. That's why I go to class, not to write down the answers. The answers are on the internet. So I just thought I would share that with you. If you want to take a look at the one guy who happens to be the most popular and most difficult course at Harvard and Yale, you take a look, see what you think. But the secret sauce is self-evaluation. Okay, off we go. I want to show you another video. This one is a friend of mine, Eric Mazur, is fascinating. AP 50 is his physics class. So we'll jump to physics. AP 50, and I have this. I already downloaded this one, QuickTime. I got this in QuickTime. So I just want to play a little bit with you here. And then break it down. I hope the sound...
When I designed AP50, my main goal was to create a course where students could take ownership of their learning. In other words, they don't learn physics because we want them to learn physics or we tell them to learn physics. No, they learn physics because they...
Well, in this video, you will not see the professor teaching. 3-hour class, I've sat in it many times. There is no transfer of knowledge. He has the highest test scores of the 17 professors who teach Introduction to Physics at Harvard, and he's the only one who does not transfer his knowledge during class. It's counterintuitive. By the way, he had the same situation as David. It took him years and years and years to figure out the problems. If you happen to teach Introduction to Physics, Eric Mazur, who's the dean of applied physics at Harvard, figured out that there are 6 problems he can give students that covers the entire curriculum. So what he did is he identified the problems that cover the content. If you can solve 6 problems, you know everything you need to know in Introduction to Physics, which is a very different way than the lecture format, presentation of knowledge format. And so what you see here are students solving problems. You walk in, you're given 6 problems, that's the structure of the course. But the big question is who owns the learning? I don't know if you heard him. You know, I could ask you, and I'm sure that the answers would range, huge, from total to nothing, but you know, who owns the learning? I think is a really important question. And frankly, Eric's a friend, and I wrote this book called Who Owns the Learning, which he happened to read, and completely changed the design of his course for students owning the learning. So I just want to show you a couple of tricks that anybody, if you don't know these tricks, might find them interesting. Right about there.
And they receive a certain amount of time, say 40 minutes, to work a number of problems on their own. Their goal is to do as well as they can on it because it's 50%.
So what you see here are students taking a test. It's a very traditional individual, happens to be on a computer. That doesn't really matter. And he gets the results, and they don't know the answers of any of the other kids. But Eric took a sabbatical, and he wandered around, and he found this professor in Indonesia who had these amazing test scores. And he walked in, and he saw something he's never seen. Students were high-fiving during an exam. They don't high-five at Harvard. So this is called giving the same test twice. After this test,
assessment grade, how well they do individually. But after that, the classroom environment changes completely because students take that same set of problems, that assessment, again, but as a team. They see for each, on their screen, they see for each of the questions that they've answered, the answers of all of their teammates, and now they need to reach agreement on which of the diversity of answers is correct. So
rather than correct the test and give it back sometime later, the students take the exact same test right away, but in a small group. The process, behavior of challenging another student on what answer did you get, and realizing that there's not full agreement, and then you have to defend your answer. If you did this all year, defend and challenge classmates all year, it turns out you learn more by taking the second test than the first test, because you have to defend and challenge. So I don't know if any of you give the same test twice, but it's a powerful idea if you want students to do well on the final exam. Do any of you do that? I'm just curious. Any of you run this process? One? Anybody else? Two?
At the University of South Alabama, almost all of their classes are exclusively based on this type of model.
Wow. Were you there? Did you?
I went to a presentation that they had at a larger convention that we went to, and they started with like 1 or 2 classes, and now I want to say it's like 90% of all of the classes they teach are based on it. And they do a self-assessment. Self-assessment is a little...
Yeah, it's peer assessment, but...
Right.
Wow, I didn't know that. And they must have had evidence
Yes.
that led them to that extreme of an application of the idea.
Absolutely. And I think they're constantly pulling out more and more.
Yeah.
numbers.
Yeah. No, I've watched this. It's phenomenally powerful. It turns out that Eric is walking around the room while the kids are debating. And I don't know if you believe this or not, but he'll see a kid who had a correct answer but doesn't actually understand why he has a correct answer. And it's only through listening to the students debating that Eric gets a deeper understanding of his own students, because the written exam doesn't show the thinking that's revealed during the debate. Do you think that would be similar? It's a good argument to make.
Right. Well, a lot of times you just doubt yourself, or you think you're on something, but you're not sure. And I
Yes.
think during the conversation, you're not only validated, but then you
Yes.
start understanding the concept.
Yes. So obviously I had to ask Eric. I said, Eric, do you ever see a class convinced in the process of doing this that one kid convinces all the others that the wrong answer is correct? And he said, yeah, every exam. But that's important. It's important to understand the misconception that convinced the others, because then Eric can unteach the misconception. So even the mistakes that are made are valuable in the process. Wow, I got to come talk to you. University of South Alabama, how about that? Anybody else? This is fun to visit here. We're good? We're good, right? We're good? Okay. All right. So, AP 50, you can watch this. It's on YouTube. You can watch the rest of it. There's one more round, by the way. The students here, when they're done with the second test, each table has to write a question for the next table, as if they're the professor, and then that question moves around, and Eric discovered that when students write their own exam question to challenge another table, then the questions are more difficult, typically, and kids are more willing to work on them because other kids did it, not the professor. And it brings me to one more little bit of research being done at Harvard. They have this research there called the curse of knowledge. This is a Steven Pinker-driven thing. Have any of you read anything about the curse of knowledge? It's in Wikipedia, so I know it's real. No, it's real. Curse of knowledge. Curse of knowledge, this is the toughest thing I'm going to tell you, that is so counterintuitive, it does not make sense. But the curse of knowledge basically says that university professors know too much to understand a first-time learner. The issues, the misconceptions, the lack of knowledge, the emotional upheaval of that age, all these things, the curse of knowledge. And Eric bought into this, Steven Pinker-driven thing, cognitive scientist. And I bought in too, by the way. I'm in. Curse of knowledge. I'm in. David Mallon, he's in. If this is true, another one of those, if it's true, then we have some serious redesign to do. Then we've got to figure out, how do we learn more about student thinking? How do we get the knowledge of the professor set aside for a moment to figure out how do kids think about these things, whatever these things are? So I thought it might be fun to show you some tools that do that. But I'm going to radically change course. Any comments or questions so far? And anything here? You're still with me, right? Are you still with me? I think so. Pondering? Pondering. Is there a question? Yes. Hi. Yes.
Do you happen to know what platform was used in that classroom in Indonesia for the online individual and then team tests?
I missed a couple words. The classroom in Indonesia.
Yes, I'm sorry. Do you know what platform or program was used to conduct that test?
Well, I can tell you that Eric invented some software to manage the whole thing called Learning Catalytics. Have you seen this? Whoa, is this powerful? Learning Catalytics. See if I can give you an example. This is a very powerful platform. Pearson bought it, by the way. So I'll give you an example of how Learning Catalytics works. Let's see. How can I find this? Images. Maybe I get a couple. Oh, good. Here's one. All right. View image. So the way, what Eric did is he designed software. You see the red lines and the green lines? I don't know if you can see from where you're sitting. Okay. So ordinarily, when a professor gets an exam back, it's one kid at a time. But what Eric did is he wrote software that takes all the answers for each question and puts them all on one visual. So what you're looking at there, I can pop down. So what you're looking at there is a physics problem of light bouncing off a mirror. Right? Light comes in from the top, the dotted line at the top. That's the light beam hitting a mirror. And you have to figure out what's the angle of reflection, refraction, I don't even know what the word is, but you got to figure out the angle it bounces, right? The red lines are all incorrect. All of them are incorrect. The green lines are correct. So all at once, thank you. So all at once, he sees the entire pattern of the whole class. That revealed that almost everyone is at that wrong angle. That means he's better informed of how to teach the next day. Learning catalytics. You could have a painting. You could have a map. It doesn't matter what the subject is. You can use learning catalytics to design assessment So you see the pattern of the whole class at once. That was the result of the visit. Eric just sat down, wrote software. He's brilliant. Eric's brilliant. Any other question? This side's winning, by the way. Yes, good. Yes, hi. Yeah.
The first day, instead of looking at the syllabus, I asked the students to tell me what they already know. And we write it on the board, and then they take a picture of it with their cameras, and at the end of cameras, I'm old, with their phones. And at the
Yeah.
end of the semester, we revisit that picture, and we have a conversation, because my final exams are oral. And we
Oh,
have
I love that.
conversations. And it's really enlightening for me to see where they grow and what they know and what they think
Yeah.
they know.
I have a piece of software that does that. I'll show it to you, that you might want. I'll show that too. There's all these tools now. Okay, we're good? Back to work, right? Okay. Okay, so here, I'll show you a couple things. The tool for your thing is coming second. But before I get there, I want to show you something from University of Virginia. Have any of you seen Prism? Prism? In the room? No one? 1, 2, 3? Yeah, this table. All right. So Prism is an interesting story. Prism was written by some graduate students when they realized that their professor would, like I'm having now, right? So this is perfect. So far, maybe 3 or 4 people have spoken up. That means I'm in the dark. I don't know what most of you are thinking. I have no idea. Because the hand-raising thing is not working so well in here. It's just not working for me. It's not working for you. It's not working for me. And by the way, that's what a lot of people discovered. The students don't always ask questions. So, Prism. Show you how this goes. Prism is designed so that a professor can understand how a whole class, similar to learning catalytics, but this is about the interpretation of text. So this professor put in Paulo Freire's Pedagogy of the Oppressed essay into Prism. Prism is an empty shell. And put in the essay, and the professor can gets 3 colors only. And you fill those in. Those are blank when you create your prism. This professor, what's insightful, what's difficult, and what's arguable, excuse me, arguable. So the students get the essay shot out, cell phone, Chromebook, anything they own, and the professor clicks on any one of these colors, and immediately the font size changes as a function of how many students highlighted the entire text according to the 3 colors. So similar to learning catalytics, but a different tool, you see how the whole class is thinking about something, which gives insight. Now, what's interesting is if you were, a philosophy professor or history or English literature or, something that's arguable, science, I guess anything, and you realize as a professor that if it's black text, nobody in the whole class highlighted. That's immediate. That gives you immediate insight because there is arguable in there, but nobody in class got it. So Prism is a tool that gives you immediate insight into how your entire class is interpreting any text at all that you cut and paste and put into Prism. Have anybody used this in your teaching? In your teaching? Nobody in the room? It's a powerful idea. But I thought we might do it, right? So I'll tell you what, the web address is free, right? You can get this for free. So it's prism.scholarslab.org. I don't know if any of you still want your kids to read anything and interpret. But if you do, you might want to use Prism. And that's the web address, prism.scholarslab.org. And if you don't mind, sign up for an account. I made a Prism. I did it, because I didn't think this questioning thing was going to go too well. And so hopefully you got the web address and you're signing up. And I'm going to give you while I go on to do some other things, I'm going to give you a web address. This one. tinyurl.com/UNTNOV. That's the web address of the Prism I created for you. You'll be my class. When you type in this web address, you're going to see Prism and 6 questions I put into Prism. Here, I'll show you. This is what you're going to see. Do y'all have the web address who want to play? Is that enough time for you to write it down or take a picture of it? Or yes, it was. Okay. I will have both sides of the conversation. All right. Now, what will happen is, oh, what did Alan do? Let's see. My prisms. I got all these prisms. Oh, I know what to do. I'll just type in that same web address. http://tinyurl.com UNTNOV. Go. All right. This is what you're looking at with any luck. And many of you see this? I hope. Some of you see this. 6 questions. By the way, these 6 questions, I'd like to explain a little bit. A lot of what I see when I watch my own kids' assignments, or I get to visit, is what I would call $1,000 pencil stuff. It's old work with new tools. The assignments have not been redesigned. We have a lot of $1,000 pencil stuff, I think, going on in the United States, where the kids all have a device, but the work has not changed. The research is pretty clear. If you do old work with a new tool, you get the same results without the tool. So these 6 questions I have come up with. These are mine, so talk to me if you don't like them. These 6 questions, we've already done number 1. Did the assignment build capacity for critical thinking on the web? We've already done that one. New lines of inquiry we're going to do. Making thinking visible, Prism is an example of that. Learning catalytics, you see things you've never seen before as a professor because of the technology. Can you engage with audiences around the world? Can you link your kids to real people that think on their feet? They have to know how to collaborate all around the world, cross subjects. That one is largely missing from the United States. Do you have purpose? I'm fascinated. You even have an office here that is looking at adding purpose, not just for the grade, but you're going to make the world a better place. When you design an assignment, are you adding purpose into the assignment? And are you showing, like David Mallon, are you showing the best in the world to your students so they see what the best looks like? Well, it turns out that when you ask these 6 questions and you walk around a campus, the answer is often no to all 6 questions. If that's true, then it's $1,000 pencil. We're not transforming the work. We're getting what we always got. Anyway, so what I did is I created this Prism, and if you don't mind, when you go to it, you click on blue, and that gives you a blue marker, see? And then you highlight what are you already doing in blue. And red is I'd like to do it. So you click on red, and you get a red marker. So that's how it goes. And then if you play with me in a moment, and then don't forget to save highlights. When you're all done, you have to hit that one button, Save Highlights. And if you go through my 6 questions and you're willing to take the highlight colors and mark it up, I'll see the combined perspective of the whole room across all 6 questions. You could do that on the first day too, right? This could be another, I'm gonna give you, because you already have the thinking. You don't need me to convince you that the first day of class is really, really important. I think we should spend, I love what you said, but I can't tell you how much I love what you said. I think we should spend a lot of time thinking about the first day. What do you do on the first day that reveals your students' thinking? And you've hit on it, right? And there are other things. So while people are doing this prism, I would love to show you Verso, versoapp.com. This is a different tool, Verso, making thinking visible. The web address for this one is versoapp.com. So this tool, sign up, it's free, and you log in, and you can make a section of this for each class you teach. It's very flexible, and it gives you a library of all the assignments you've ever invented. And with Verso, you can put in a photograph, a video, a painting, a spreadsheet. There's no limit. Anything you want with Verso. Absolutely no limit. So I used to teach American history, and what I might do on the very first day, different than you, I love yours, by the way, I might shoot out a primary source document, chock full of nuts stationery. This is a letter written to John Kennedy, and whoever wrote this is, my vigorous opposition to your election is one of sincerity. This guy did not like Kennedy, at least not around civil rights. So what I might do on the first day of class is shoot something out in my field. And then what Verso does is, I know this is going to sound weird, but the culture of a classroom counts. So with Verso, the students have an app, so they see the document I just showed you, and I can ask any question. The question I asked is, what are your questions? I want to know on the first day of class, what are all my students' questions? Not the answers, the questions. So this is not an interesting question. Who wrote the letter? It's a dead-end question. It's what's called a closed question. You have to know it, but it's not really interesting. Who wrote the letter? By the way, please note that there are no names. Everything is respondent. Please note that. Well, the second student wrote, how did this impact history? That's an interesting question. That's a hypothetical question. And then the first kid sees the second, and that caused the first kid to ask a deeper question. Was there more? Show me the whole thing, right? That's a more interesting question than who wrote the letter. Now, what's fascinating to me is the professor can see all the names of all the students, but the students cannot see the names of all the students. And on the first day of class, a lot of kids will not raise their hand. But I think we should learn everything possible about who our students are on the first day of class. The professor is the learner on the first day of class, not the kids, right? We share that, compatico. Now, when the kids see what all the other kids are thinking, and you decide you want to have conversation. Somebody did this for my benefit, University of Virginia. They asked questions before they used Verso. Then they used Verso. And the kids could see all the kids thinking. Then the professor led conversation after Verso, and it was like the whole class wanted to participate. And I talked to this girl, and I said, I watched you. Before the Verso thing, professor asked, you didn't raise your hand. And she said, when professors ask me a question, I don't know what the other students are thinking. I am not going to participate. But when I saw what all the other kids are thinking, then it's safer for me. I can participate. Do you believe this? That knowing what all the other kids are thinking led to more risk-taking as a learner during class, asking questions and contributing. I love that. Anyway, that's Verso. So with Verso, you could send out a painting, a photograph, a video in advance, afterwards, during class, get kids to respond. And by the way, the really cool thing about this tool is you don't see the other kids until you submit yours. So unlike a lot of other social media tools, I won't name them, if you're the 9th kid, you've seen the first 8. Not this. This keeps it clean. All right, so I have to wrap up, right? It's almost 10:30. So let's just kind of wrap up. 1, I'm concerned that we have to watch kids use Google. We have to teach them a repertoire of search tools just to get the right information at the right time. That's easy. The design of assignments, changing the design of assignments, that's hard. Matching the power of the internet. I happen to be a big believer that we now have tools from Learning Catalytics to Prism to Verso that give professors insight into what their kids are thinking that you've never had before. I think that's a powerful idea, making thinking visible. And I agree with your colleague. I think it starts on the first day. Let's see if any of you participated in that Prism thing. You could never what? Never get to open? Yeah? Let's see. Let me go find out what's going on with Prism. Here, if I type in http tinyurl.com. UNT, NOV, unable, oh, 2 V's, sorry, that was me. Got to type in the right web address. Yeah, not happening, huh? Did you hit save highlights? Did you get this part? If I do it, I can do it. Doing it, okay, so I'll say, if I highlight that, just to show you, I highlight it, and I can then do the red one, would like to do it. Let's see, this one I'd like to do, and this is how it goes. I have an eraser, I can back up. That has no value. I don't think students should create a contribution. That has no value. And I'll say save highlights, and boom, oh, yes, no, you are doing it. There are people in the room who have successfully done it. Not a lot, just a couple. We'll have to get a student to sit with you and help you, right? You're in, fantastic. All right, anyway, hope it was good enough to criticize. Thanks for letting me hang with you guys. All good.